Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Once again, we're going to discuss two plants that are both edible and medicinal. We're going from two of my books, the Spring Foraging Guide, and actually this one is perfect for this time of year. You know, it's early summer, it's hot as the dickens. This is one that starts in spring, but you can eat it well through summer and fall. You can enjoy it. It's so many of the most useful plants are considered a weed, so it's called, and it's purslane. I am actually very fond of purslane. We'll get into that in a minute. But the other plant we're going to discuss is dock. And, you know, I've talked about docks and sorrels a lot. They're usually fairly interchangeable, so I always say docks and sorrels. But docks are common. Just about any damp spot is going to probably have some dock growing in it. I mean, it's just, if it's not too sunny, if dock gets full sun, it'll get a little tough, like right now when the weather's hot. If you got a nice shady, damp area, you'll probably find some docks, and they're nice big leaves usually. There's so many varieties of docks. Um, you know, you can pick enough to make a meal pretty easily, and they're really delicious, they're really nutritious, and medicinally probably going to surprise you. So let's just dive right in here. Where do we start today? Well, I usually start with the edible plant first. Today they're both edible, so it's like kind of, roll the dice. Where do we start? Well, I think I'll start with docks. Docks are the Rumex species. There are several members of this family. All are considered weeds. A couple find their way into a salad garden, cultivated, and a few are ornamental. You may have heard bloody dock and such. It's a nice, pretty ornamental plant that you can use interchangeably with all the edible and medicinal docks because they're all docks. Docks are, generally speaking, very much like sorrel, but not really interchangeable. Sorrel tends to be a bit more tender. Um, I only add like really early tender leaves of dock to a salad. Mostly I'm going to cook dock. It's slightly tough, best cooked as a pot herb. You can add it to soups. You can put it in a casserole. I mean, just it's just a little tough to eat raw. Though I do sometimes, if I'm walking through the yard or something, I'll grab some dandelions and greens, and if there's a dock or two, I just grab it and eat it all in one handful. It's very, very, very tasty. Docks and sorrels both have a slightly lemony flavor, but that's much more pronounced in the sorrel. You'll usually find ducks, as I said, in damp areas. For that reason, okay, resist the temptation to harvest them around roadside ditches. You're gonna see a lot of dock growing by the ditches by the roadside, but they've been contaminated by runoff from the roads or chemical sprays, or ditches by fields can be really contaminated. So don't do it. You can gather some seeds there. Absolutely. You could even dig up a couple plants and take them and plant them somewhere clean, like in your yard or something. And once they propagate, you're going to have a nice crop. So I do that a lot. I actually, I've told you many times about my favorite gardening and foraging tool. It's called a hori hori knife. It's a mix between a knife and a spade and who knows what else. It's just the most useful thing. Very durable, very tough. You carry it in a little sheath on your belt. It's I don't know, a foot long or so, and you can dig up a lot of stuff with it. I mean, it's very useful. So when I see something like docks growing in a contaminated area, and I think, I need some more docks growing in a clean area so I can eat them more, well, I'll just go and dig them up and take them home and plant them and let them go to seed. And the next year, I got plenty of dock growing there. I do that with a lot of stuff, actually. I'm always like harvesting, collecting plants and taking them home and sticking them in some, little spot where I think they're going to do well. I rarely eat docks alone. I often just toss them in with dandelion or wild mustard greens. It's not that they're bad by themselves. It's just that I think the flavors are better if they're mixed with other good wild greens, and that's really what they are. They're a wild green. We don't really use the root very much as an edible plant, where we might use it medicinally. The only thing, I mean, yeah, I love ducks and sorrels, and I like them. I eat them a lot, and they've never bothered me at all. Now, I have good kidneys and all that, and I don't have any problem with bladder stones. The 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 warning you'll often see is that docks and sorrels contain oxalic acid. That's what gives them that lemony flavor. Now, if you were to try to live solely on them, um, they could cause some urinary stones and such as that. They could irritate the kidneys, but mainly they can kind of rob the body of calcium, I think it is. I don't have that note in front of me, but there's a mineral deficiency that can be caused, and it's because of the way the body processes that oxalic acid. But I think they're very nutritious, and like I said, I don't have a problem with eating them pretty regularly myself, but my constitution may be different than yours. I would definitely, though, learn this plant and learn to enjoy eating it. You can use docks any way you might use a pot herb. One thing I really like about docks and sorrels is that lemony flavor. Now, I love stuffed grape leaves, dolmades, right? Had a Greek restaurant in town, grew up with some, Greek kids, and man, I fell in love with Greek food. I am not kidding you. Spanakopita is still like, if someone asks me, what do you want? I say spanakopita. I mean, I just love that stuff. But pickled stuffed grape leaves, dolmades, if they're made right, oh my gosh, they're good. And docks, well, and when I say made right, I've had some really bad ones. What you want to do is kind of cook and serve, I guess I would say, your stuffed grape leaves in a butter and lemon sauce, right? So docks and sorrels, they have that lemony flavor. I might put some sorrels in the stuffing. I'm going to use docks as a wrapper and use it just like I would a grape leaf. But it's gotta be butter, okay? I have had some that were done with margarine. They were disgusting. Margarine is really bad for your health in the first place, but sure you could substitute olive oil. I wouldn't mind that a bit, but no, don't go with the margarine. It's just not good. So, like I said, docks have a nice broad leaf. Usually about the size of a grape leaf, and they have a little bit of that built-in lemony flavor, so it's really good. And so, I've told you before how I use docks and sorrels with cooking fish and chicken to give it that kind of lemony flavor. But with the stuffed grape leaves, I mean, it's just like a no-brainer. I mean, it just works, and it gives, a little bit of wild flavor and a little bit of interest. Make a platter of these, serve them at a party or something, and people are just going to go crazy over them. So depending on the time of the year and growing conditions, like I said, in full sun they're going to be tougher than in the shade, and they do like damp conditions. So if you're in a drought or something, you're not going to have good docks. But if they are a little tough, you will probably want to blanch the leaves first. I'm probably just going to recommend blanching the leaves because docks do tend to be a little tough. But either way, just wash the leaves, cut out the stem before cooking, and then roll them up egg roll style around some cooked rice, maybe some ground lamb or something else mixed with that cooked rice. You could season the rice with any herbs you like. Like I said, lamb's probably classic. You can use game or chicken. You do fine, really fine. I like to add a little feta cheese chopped up with some olives. You could do some grilled eggplant, some any kind of like maybe grilled vegetables. It'd be really nice. Um, just roll them up, like I said, eggplant. I mean, egg roll style, and then put your stuffed leaves or rolled leaves. I mean, they're like little cigars or something, and tucked in on both ends, or little burritos. Let's just go with that. They're like little green burritos, and put them in a pan with a little olive oil. Cook them on medium heat. Top with butter. Splash of dry white wine, and lid. So like I'm saying, you just put the stuffed leaves right in a pan with your butter or olive oil. Combination's probably what I'm going to use. Little dry white wine, little lemon juice if you want, right? Put the lid on, let them kind of steam and cook through, and they're ready to go. And that pan sauce that's going to come off of there, that butter and wine and lemon, that's the flavor you're looking for. And that's why you don't want to use margarine. And you would definitely, if you used olive oil, I'd probably say mix olive oil and butter. Walnut oil would actually be very, very nice. I use walnut oil a lot because I carve wooden spoons, and it's a good food safe oil that seals the spoons. Has a very good flavor. It's a little expensive. Sesame oil would be nice, if you wanted to give a little Asian twist to it. But yeah, these are just, they're considered a finger food, an hors d'oeuvre. Honestly, I can sit there and just eat a plate of them with a good glass of dry white wine. I'm talking like, Sauvignon Blanc. That's perfect because it's lemony. Sauvignon Blanc has a very citrusy flavor. If it's a good one, you can get one that's maybe grown in too hot conditions, it's a little sweet or whatever. But let's see, there's one I used to like a lot. Oh, Castillo del Diablo. Castillo del Diablo. It's the Mendoza wines, the same ones that make Conquistoro. That's more of like I think they're Argentinian or Chilean. Maybe Chilean. Anyway, Conquistoro is usually not too expensive. They make Frontera. That's another brand they do. The Castillo del Diablo was like a little bit more premium. If you make a big platter of but mid-price. We're not talking. It's not very expensive wine, but it's a little step up from what you might call table wines. I happen to love table wines because I like my wine to complement my food. So I would not hesitate. Now, it's one thing if you just get something for sipping and you're just really appreciating the fine wine. It's another thing when you're eating and you just want a good wine to go with the food. I would not hesitate to buy Frontera or Conquistoro, Sauvignon Blanc, or really any of their wines. They're actually pretty darn good. Another one I put in that category would be Rex Goliath, any of the Sutterhome, Linder. Yeah, I mean those are kind of not terribly expensive, good table wines, and you put that bottle wine that's decent to drink on a table with a nice platter of stuffed dock leaves, and people were going to be like, wow, these are like the best stuffed grape leaves I've ever had. And you can have a little fun with it. You can get creative with your stuffings and everything, but I really do like that lemon butter sauce. A little black pepper with that. That's really good stuff. And I've got a recipe in here for spanakopita doing wild greens as well. We'll get into that another day because, I mean, Greek flavors really are quite good. I mean, it was through the Greek cooking that I learned how to use mint with like tomato and eggplant and such, and just that's a game changer. Mint just enhances the flavor of garlic and tomatoes, and it's just wonderful stuff. But in American cooking, we usually think of mint as just like a sweet flavor in like mint candies or mint chocolate chip ice cream. Mint's a very important medicinal herb. It's one of the most important. And it has no sweetness of its own. It's actually somewhat bitter, but it has all those aromatic oils in it that just enhance the flavor of food. Exponentially. So, I definitely throw some mint leaves in with the rice when I'm doing the stuffing for the stuffed dock leaves. Mint goes very well with lamb. I mean, that's a classic combination, so absolutely go for it. Pork, mint and pork go very well. Um, yeah, anything. Shrimp, mint and shrimp actually go together very well. Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. So, turn your backyard into your kitchen. That's the old philosophy of the Cajuns and such. I have some Cajun and Creole ancestry, both actually, and Huguenot. They always called the swamp the grocery store. Everything you need you can find in the swamp. Yeah, I mean, if you have well, it's like what George Herder said, the great George Leonard Herder, real hero of mine, wrote several great outdoor books and cookbooks in the 40s and 50s. He said, people don't starve in the woods because they lack food. He said, people starve because they lack knowledge. The more you learn about the plants that are growing in your area, the more medicinal and edible plants you're going to find. And that gives you food security. That gives you, well, medicinal security to a point, to the extent that you learn to use those herbs. And a lot more variety in nutrition. I mean, you're going to get so many nutrients from eating like 3 dozen wild plants than you ever would from just, I don't know, 4 or 5 vegetables you buy at the grocery store to have cooked or in a salad. I mean, variety really is what gives us the most nutrition. I believe that firmly. I believe that's why my great grandparents all lived to be about 100 years old. They ate a much wider variety of food than we eat now. So now let's go ahead. Speaking of which, let's start with purslane. Purslane was it's a so-called hated weed now, and whatever. It was a really important food in early America. Our ancestors cultivated purslane as well as found it in the wild. It's been described as a cultivated vegetable as far back as the ancient Greek writer Pliny the Elder. Believe it or not. I mean, now people just go crazy and spray it with Roundup. Pliny the Elder was growing it as a vegetable. I grow it as a vegetable. It's absolute, I always say if you like okra, you'll love purslane. It's Portulaca oleracea. All right. Portulaca is the family. Oleracea. Well, what were we just talking about? Margarine, right? They used to call it oleomargarine. Okay, it's sort of the same Latin root word as like oily. Well, oleracea doesn't mean that it's actually oily. It has that sort of mucilaginous quality like okra. So that's why it's called Portulaca oleracea. Other names, just purslane, hogweed. So many things called hogweed. I don't even mess with that title because you never know what the heck anybody's talking about. Portulaca, of course. Pusley. In England, it was called pusley. Red root rock moss, verdolaga. Never even heard of that one. I've never heard it called anything actually but purslane. But Miss Grieve tells us of the history and use of purslane. She said it has round, smooth, procumbent, succulent stems growing about 6 inches high. Just Google it. I only know of one plant that somewhat resembles purslane at certain stages of its growth. It's a kind of spurge that is weedy. It often grows in driveways. Once the purslane is mature, you're not going to mistake it for that member of the spurge family. So do just, Google purslane, Purslane, or Portulaca, Portulaca, and especially, this is the other thing, the reason you couldn't confuse the two. The leaves of purslane are thick and have that like slimy juice inside, just like a cactus would or okra. That member of the spurge family, one is much smaller. When mature, the leaves are just no comparison at all. They're thin. They're just regular old, plant leaves. They don't have that thick, juicy inside. So I'm not going to worry too much about how to describe this plant. Like I said, just Google it. You can use one of those plant apps like iNaturalist or something if you had a question. But I kind of think purslane is probably one of the most easily identified of all plants. Once you've seen it once, you're not going to mistake it for anything else. She said that purslane was a pleasant salad herb. It can be eaten raw. I prefer it cooked, whatever. Excellent for scorbutic trouble, so it contains vitamin C. It was good for scurvy. The succulent leaves and long shoots are cooling in spring salad, and older shoots are used as a pot herb, and the thick stems of the plant that have run to seed are pickled in salt and vinegar to form winter salads. And that's, yes, pickled purslane is really good. That's yeah. I think in my cookbook I probably have a recipe for pickled purslane. If not, well, I guarantee I've got it in another book. So anyway, yeah, that's one of those that's going to get used a lot for me. Purslane is largely cultivated in Holland and other countries for this purpose. It is used in equal proportions with sorrel and to make the well-known French soup bonne femme. So, we just talked about sorrels and docks. Combined with purslane, that makes the French soup bonne femme, soup good woman. I mean, probably can't go wrong with that, right? I know it's good. That's a really, tasty and classic soup. Gerard said of the herb, raw purslane is much used in salads with oil, salt, and vinegar. Yes, believe it or not, the English did used to eat salads. For some reason they stopped for like a few hundred years, and now salads are popular again. Well, and what I'm saying is all the books from like, I don't know, 1700s, 1800s, 1900 through maybe 1960, in English cookbooks, all vegetables were cooked, and usually cooked very soft. Why is that? Well, it has to do with the English really colonizing the Caribbean and engaging the slave trade. See, they found they could grow a lot of sugar in the Caribbean, and that's why they got heavy into slavery in the 1700s. Before then, slavery was pretty much outlawed in England, at least in terms of black slaves. They loved to enslave the Irish, but they took a ton of slaves, of course, from Africa, put them in the Caribbean islands to run sugar plantations. The English began eating hundreds of pounds of sugar per person per year. I mean, they became the largest sugar and rum made from molasses consumer in the entire world. And they began having rotten teeth. So we have this like kind of stereotypical idea of the English with bad teeth. Well, it's because they began eating far more sugar. Before then, sugar was like a very expensive luxury for the rich. By 1800s, England was consuming more sugar as a nation than the entire rest of the world combined. Anyway, so everyone knows what sugar does to your teeth. It's actually more of a chemical thing in your body chemistry than it is sugar actually sitting on your teeth and causing cavities, as you might have been taught as a kid. But anyway, that's why the English had such bad teeth. Now, if we go back to Gerard's time, we're talking 1500s England, they still pretty much preferred cooked vegetables, but they did eat a lot of salad. I'm not going to say they ate as many salads as the French, but raw vegetables were not unknown in the British diet in the 1500s, whereas in the 1800s they would have been almost unheard of. So there's your lesson for the day on how sugar may actually be the root of all evils. Yes, slavery, bad teeth, and who knows what else. Piracy, certainly a lot of pirates are involved in that. And wars, lots of wars over sugar. So anyway, as Gerard had said, raw purslane is much used in salad with oil, salt, and vinegar. It cools the blood and causes appetite. I mean, it stimulates the appetite. And another writer, Evelyn, tells us that familiarly eaten with oil and vinegar, moderation should be used. He said it was eminently moist and cooling, especially the golden variety, which is generally entertained in all of our salads. Some eat of it cold after it's been boiled, and Dr. Muffet would have boiled purslane in wine for his nourishment. That, a very interesting use. Kind of odd. I wouldn't have thought of that. Mr. Grieve mentions that it was very popular as a food by Native Americans in North Carolina, in North America. She says that it is boiled and eaten by the Indians, and that it proves most sustaining on long journeys. That 2 to 3 ounces a day are quite sufficient for a man, even while undergoing great fatigue. Wow. She said that Claytonia belongs to the same plant order as purslane. I believe that's been more separated out now. But it also has an edible root. Of course, you want to be a little careful with it, but yeah, it was often used interchangeably. Interestingly enough, she said that in ancient times, purslane was used as an anti-magic herb. Strewn around the bed was said to afford protection against evil spirits. It was also used as a poultice for burns caused by lightning or gunpowder, even. So, I mean, yeah, that mucilaginous quality is very soothing. She said under medicinal actions and uses, it was highly recommended for many complaints. She says the expressed juice, taken while fresh, is good for strangury and to mix with sugar and honey to afford relief to dry coughs, shortness of breath, and immoderate thirst, as well as external application inflammation sores. It was used to cool the heat in the liver and to be excellent for hot agues or fevers, and all pains of the head proceeding from heat or from want of sleep or the frenzy, not sure what that is, but was also said to stop hemorrhages. The herb bruised and applied to the forehead and temple was said to allay excessive heat, and applied to the eyes remove inflammation. Culpeper said if the herb is placed under the tongue, it assuages thirst. Applied to the gout, it eases the pains thereof, and hardens the sinews, if it come not of the cramp or a cold cause. Combined with the oil of roses, it was recommended for sore mouths and swollen gums, and to fasten loose teeth. It has a astringent quality. It would kind of, tighten up the gums a little bit. Another authority, she says, declared that distilled water of purslane, presumably alone, she didn't say mixed with anything else, would take away pains in the teeth. So Gerard and Turner, another old English herbalist, said that the leaves eaten raw are good for teeth that are set on edge with the eating of sharp and sour things. I don't know. The seeds, bruised and boiled in wine, were given as children as a vermifuge to get rid of intestinal worms. So very, very useful plant. And there are also several false purslanes, like sea purslane and a couple others that she just kind of differentiates. In the Irish tradition, John Kehoe tells us, it comforts the weak stomach. It is good against burning, fevers, worms, hemorrhages, boils, and flows of all kind. The seed kills and expels worms. John Kehoe was quite succinct for an Irishman. He did not have the gift of the Blarney, but he was a very good herbalist. Brother Aloysius said, purslane, used for internal inflammation, especially for bladder and kidney complaints, impure blood, scurvy, heartburn, and blood spitting. By the 1860s, looking at American use in the South, resources of the southern fields and forests said it was used as anti-scorbutic, so to protect against scurvy, diuretic, and anthelmintic. He says it has long been used as a salad and pot herb. The young shoots are gathered when from 2 to 5 inches long. A blue dye could be obtained from the plant. He goes into instructions on that. Very interesting. They use it to dye yarn. More modern use. Plants for a Future says, the plant is antibacterial and antiscorbutic, depurative, diuretic, and febrifuge. So softening, helps with fever. Do you say anything else we don't know? No, I think we're good. The leaves are a rich source of omega-3 fatty acid, which is thought to be important in preventing heart attacks and strengthening the immune system. Seed sources such as walnut, however, are richer in this source. The fresh juice is used in the treatment of strangury, cough, sores, etc. The leaves are poulticed and applied to burns. But they are, but they and the plant juice are particularly effective in the treatment of skin diseases and insect stings. A tea made from the leaves is used in the treatment of stomach aches and headaches. The leaf juice is applied in earaches. It is also said to alleviate caterpillar stings. Depends on where you live. There are some really nasty stinging caterpillars. The kind of the big hairy ones usually. Um, so if you live where you get those, I would definitely have a, a plant like purslane on hand because they can really mess you up. The remedy is not given to pregnant women or patients with digestive problems. Okay, any plant that we say is, well, they say it right here, the seeds are tonic and vermifuge. Any plant that you read that is vermifuge or enthelmintic or any other word for getting rid of intestinal parasites and worms can be very dangerous for pregnant women. So obviously you want to avoid that. They said that the leaves were also prescribed for dyspepsia, that's basically stomach upset, burping and such, and opacities of the cornea. Very interesting. More modern use, according to the Peterson Field Guide to Medicinal Plants, American Indians adopted the plant as a poultice for burns. So I guess they're saying there isn't a native variety, but it was the purslane that was brought here was quickly adopted by Native Americans. It was used as a poultice for burns. The juice was used for earaches, tea for headaches and stomach aches. Plant juice is said to alleviate caterpillar stings. So that's a couple sources there on the caterpillar stings. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely plant some if I had stinging caterpillars in my area, which, well, thank God I don't. As far as I know, I don't. I hope I don't. Those things kind of freak me out, actually. It's used in Europe for inflammation, sores, painful urination. That's what strangury is, by the way. We've mentioned that word several times, and it just means painful urination. And reportedly is also hypotensive, meaning it lowers your blood pressure, and diuretic, removing excess fluid. So, y'all, I think that's going to wrap this one up for today. Yeah, I mean, purslane and docks, two of the most useful edible and medicinal plants. We didn't get a lot into the medicinal use of docks. We will. The reason is we have recently. I did a whole show on docks just a few back. So, docks have an astringent quality. They can help with excessive bleeding and diarrhea. They can also help with constipation because they have a lot of fiber. Docks have a lot of nutrition and are really, really good medicine. Good for the heart, good for the lungs, etc. Good for the liver. So learn to identify these plants. You may want to grow these in the garden. Purslane loves hot, sunny, dry areas. At least it does here. Interestingly, I think Miss Grieve mentioned it, and in a lot of the British books, they say that purslane needs more water than other plants. Here, it usually grows like in the cracks in your walkway, and it just loves hot, sunny areas like any other succulent. It's sort of like a cactus or an aloe. I know it doesn't like wet feet, at least where I live, because in the mountains we get so much rain. This is one that I would grow, well, in rocky areas or even in flower pots that I could, put in a sunny spot and keep them out of the rain. If you live in the desert, I mean, you could probably grow purslane very easily. That's my opinion. But again, there must be some varieties that do need more water than others. And on the opposite side of that, you have the docks, which like damp feet. They like to grow in wet areas, around ditches and kind of boggy areas. So, I mean, wherever you live, you can probably find one of these plants that's going to work for you. And, more nutrition, more variety in your food, and it's free, and it's medicinal. So, I mean, how can you go wrong, right? So, anyway, y'all, have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, for your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.